right, welcome to week 10, module 10, day 1. In this module, we're talking about early childhood development, supporting language and literacy development, and supporting deaf and hard of hearing students. This first lecture should be pretty short. All right, when it comes to early childhood development, one of the categories we are focused on is physical development. The overall physical development of children ages 3 to 5 should be a major consideration throughout the learning environment. Children's physical development, how their bodies are changing, is categorized in terms of large or gross motor development and small or fine motor development. We will distinguish these. Large or gross motor development refers to the child's large muscle and coordination development. Leg and arm movement are two of the most common. So under this heading, you would have things like balance. We can think of the balance beam. That's a common fixture at play structures at middle elementary schools. Here are some more examples of large gross motor activities. Things like walking, hopping, skipping, running, throwing, jumping, pumping a swing. Making the swing go back and forth while you're sitting in it. Walking on a balance beam, riding a tricycle, bicycle, carrying buckets of sand and water. So these use large muscle groups, and they don't require really fine attention to minute detail. A key component in supporting children's gross motor development is providing adequate space to explore large motor movements. Many times this is accomplished outside, apart from the classroom, or in a gymnasium setting. All right, let's move on to small or fine motor development. Small finger movement and high hand coordination are some examples of fine motor skills. This leads to a child's development of writing skills. When children first start to write, they usually will hold the writing utensil in a less sophisticated full fist clench called the palmar grasp or the palmar supinate grasp. So even in preschool, kindergarten, we're using safety scissors, things like that. Cut out shapes out of construction paper and the like. These are the sort of training hands for the fine motor skill of writing using pens and pencils later on. Okay, but in the beginning, we've got, I have a pen here. We've got just the sort of palmar grasp like that. Okay, so it's important to note PALMAR. It's a name. It doesn't mean someone who palms. The name of the person who named this type of grasp. Palmar grasp, moving through to the dynamic tripod. All right, at 10 months, babies can do the pincer grasp, like a lobster or crab. 12 to 15, they can already do the palmar supinate grasp. Okay, so using the whole hand to hold on to something. At 2 to 3 years, they can do the digital pronate grasp. You can see the fingers are all pointed down here. And 3 to 4 years, the quadrupod grasp. Quadrupod means 4 feet. So you've got 4 fingers minus the pinky, holding the writing utensil. 3 to 4 years, the static tripod grasp is usually seen. So static because sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 3, depending on the level of comfort of the user. And by 5 to 6 years, you've got the dynamic tripod grasp. Right. So not just gripping it firmly, but gripping it in an agile fashion. Handwriting begins to improve, become more legible at this point. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about small or fine motor development. As they refine and develop their writing skills, the young students, they will begin to hold the utensil with their thumb and forefinger, the pincer grasp. When children first begin to write, they tend to use scribbling marks and large brush strokes that are not well controlled. But as their skills develop, their scribbles turn into more defined shapes, and their pictures begin to look like the objects they are trying to represent. All right, a bit more on this topic. Children develop at different rates and can develop skills quite quickly once they begin to concentrate on an area. Child who at first doesn't show an interest in writing might use painting or cutting, something along these lines, as a way to develop these skills, and may later show a strong interest in writing. So again, we're developing at different rates. Okay, let's start talking about cognitive development. The development of thought and cognition. This refers to how one thinks and gains new knowledge. Children's thinking is a process of developing schemas or pockets of knowledge. You could say chunks of knowledge, nuggets of knowledge within their brains. Since not all children learn the same way, it's important to take all styles of learning into account. So when they're at the sort of post-secondary or college level, you're learning a lot of critical thinking skills. At this point, we're simply learning thinking skills. Every child develops a different preferred style of learning. These styles of learning include visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. As you might have guessed, an auditory learner is one who learns best when they can hear information. They're more apt to solve problems when they can talk them out and can follow verbal instructions and directions. Okay. A lot of us are auditory learners. Think about grown-ups who like to listen to audiobooks, or folks whose preferred method of studying is to listen to a lecture rather than watch it. Auditory learners. A visual learner learns best when they can see the information. They tend to think and remember using pictures or symbols. For these students, it's important to show them how to do something and attach a visual image to the information you want them to remember. Serving these learners entails including images with something that you're teaching. Serving the auditory learners entails including some sort of audio. So that could be a mnemonic, something that you're using to help people remember things verbally, right? And then this, in this case, with the visual learners, it could be just some sort of image that you include. A kinesthetic learner will learn best by touching and feeling objects and transforming ideas and information into movement. Back to the pen. You can facilitate learning by relating the concept to a body movement or a physical sensation. Okay, sometimes when we teach people how to use pens at the very beginning of their writing careers, we might say something like, we can think of it as another finger. It's another finger that you use to write and to draw. Everyone knows we go from doing finger painting to regular painting with an instrument like this. So that would be a way to make it relatable for kinesthetic learners. Okay, here are some activities that can facilitate all three of these learning dispositions. Reading books. Okay. You've got the sound, you've got the images, you've got the tactile touch of holding a book, right? For the auditory learner, the book could be presented on a tape and they can listen and follow along. For the visual learner, the pictures in the book can be looked at to understand the story, to help understand the story. For the kinesthetic learner, puppets or other props can be used to imitate the story as it's told. Okay, so as we see the motions, if we're a kinesthetic learner and we see the motions happening, this helps us to understand. Here's another one, wire sculpting. For the auditory learner, directions or ideas can be shared out loud. First we do this, next we do this. For the visual learner, examples can be drawn on a piece of paper for them to observe or copy. Okay? We want to make this, everybody. Okay. For the kinesthetic learner, models could be used for them to examine, to understand different ways to sculpt the wire. There's another one, counting. The auditory learner could count out loud. The visual learner could point to pictures or symbols of the numbers. And the kinesthetic learner touches or hold objects that correspond with a number, like numbered blocks, for example. And as they get older, maybe dice. All right, a little bit more on learning styles. The para should present information through multiple methods, like we've just been discussing. So all the children are more likely to learn the information. Although a child may learn best through one style, they can still learn and have reinforcement of knowledge through other styles. Okay, so each of the styles that we just talked about can be a vector for learning, even if it's just in the form of reinforcement. All right, hands-on exploration. Children learn through the use of their senses: touch, smell, sight, taste, and sound. When children have opportunities to explore their environment hands-on, they can gain a deeper understanding of the world around them. This is one reason why, group work and group project work are becoming so en vogue in education these days. For example, if children are interested in learning about apples, real apples should be provided to allow children to touch, smell, look at, and taste. This real experience deepens the child's understanding of what an apple is. Now, I don't want to oversell the apples as diversity here, but maybe in your household you only like to purchase one kind of apple. What if you brought 5 or 6 kinds of apples to the classroom for the students to see and experience? That would be eye-opening. They could explore them hands-on, literally. Open-ended activities. We saw reference to these in our pre-test. These are activities that don't have a specific product in mind. They give children the opportunity to be creative and use their own thought processes about how something should be done. So, sometimes you've got just a box of supplies. It's got some scraps, maybe some whole pieces of paper and some pens and scissors and things, organized, but not with an end in mind. It's not, hey, everybody, today we're going to make a turkey. Today we're going to make whatever we want to make, and you'll see the most, creative, inventive things come out of the students when you do that. Oftentimes when children are given opportunities to explore without too much constraint, they will show us different ways of using materials that than what we would have thought of. Legos are amazing these days. When I was a young kid, there were so few types of Legos that I had to do different things to them to get them just to do the things that they do right out of the box these days. How about a collage? Providing various materials for creating a collage is an example of an open-ended activity. The materials can be specific, but the idea or product is not set before the activity is presented to children. Other examples could be some of these: working with clay or Play-Doh, painting, drawing, block building, puppets, and pretend play. Open-ended activities stimulate children's thinking and creativity. All right, we have come to the end of Unit 10, Day 1. Thanks for sticking with me. We'll catch you for Day 2.